Hi everyone, I am Jeff Lawton. I'm going to look at a game from yesterday's Magnus Carlsen Invitational tournament. It was the fourth game in the match between Anish Giri and Liren, and at the time of the game it was 1.5 points all, so a really crucial game. And Anish had the white pieces. He's ranked 10th in the world at the moment, and his opponent Liren, of course, he's ranked 3rd in the world. So we had 1d4. So it's a 15-minute game, 10-second increment, knight f6, c4, and e6, and now knight to f3. Now d5, Queen's Gambit declined, which top players, probably the most common opening they play against each other. Knight c3, c5, heading for a Tarrasch defense, and c takes d5. And instead of ed5, we had knight d5, which is the semi-Tarrasch defense, e4, knight takes c3, he takes c3. So black gives white the pawn centre, but he hopes to be able to attack it later on. C takes d4, c takes d4, and now bishop b4 check. Part of black's strategy is to swap pieces off so the centre's not so strong. Bishop d2, bishop takes d2, queen takes d2, and now castles. Then we had bishop to c4 developing, and this is the main line of this variation. Knight d7. We had castles, and now b6, intending to develop the bishop on the long diagonal, adding pressure to the centre. So we had d5, which is unusual. Usually we see a rook move to the centre of the board, either the f rook, the king's rook, or the queen's rook. We had knight c5, and now rook f to e1, protecting the centre. Bishop b7 and rook a d1. So it looks on the surface, you sort of think quick inspection that white's got easier development, but it turns out that there's always a battle on whether the pawn on d5 is strong or weak, and this game is certainly no exception to that rule. We had rook c8 developing, now h4, which white often does. Magnus Carlsen himself even went as far as playing h4 and g4 in a game against Jeffrey Zhong at Tata Steel earlier in the year. We had queen to f6, which develops the queen, makes way for the rook very neatly, and it helps to give some protection to the king because black's got a lack of minor pieces on that side of the board. So we now had queen to e3, e takes d5, e takes d5, and now a6. This is all part of Ding's plan. After h5, he played b5, which kicks the bishop away from the protection of its pawn. So now there's only the rook left defending it at the moment. So first Ding played h6 to stop any ideas of h6 by white. We had rook to d4, and now rook f d8. So the pawn is now attacked twice with the bishop and the rook. Bishop and the rook, and it's only defended once by the rook. So we had queen d2 to defend it twice, rook d6. So if white just keeps trying to defend this pawn without being able to use it, it probably won't do any good really. So white relies on tactics very often to make this position work. Now here we had rook c1, which at the moment stops this because then the knight is lost. So instead of that, Ding played queen to d8, pressuring the pawn again this way with the queen on d8. We had queen to b4, hitting the knight again. Now we had knight to a4. Now the rooks came off the board, rook c8, bishop takes c8, and now knight e5. So rather than trying to passively defend, which won't do much good really, because black could play knight here and try and take it, or perhaps play bishop to b7, which might be better to keep protection of c6 square. So we had knight e5, and now the pawn is protected by some neat tactics, which is what white tries to do a lot of the time. if rook d5, queen takes d5, then queen e7 turns out to be very powerful because there's no answer to a queen check on the back rank. For example, if you play, well, let's look at bishop e6 first. If I play bishop e6, we run into queen e8 check, king h7, and rather neat move, knight g6, threatening checkmate on h8. So the only, well, if you play takes, it runs into hg6, which is mate straight away. And if queen h5, we can play knight to f8 check, king g8, knight e6, which is discovered check from the queen, king h7 only move, and knight f8 check again, king g8. Well, white's a piece up now, but just to show sort of the mechanism that white's after, you can play knight here check on g6, king h7 forced, and this time knight e7, and now there's a threat of unstoppable threat this time of queen g8 checkmate. It shows you white's basic attacking mechanism. If instead of playing bishop there, we could try knight c5, but then queen e8 occurs again, king h7, and it's the same thing this time because even without the bishop on e6, it's the same threat. We can't take this because it's checkmate. And so if you play queen h5, you run into the same knight and queen checking. We go knight g6, king h7, now knight e7, and then again queen g8 mate is there's no move that gets out of that. So Ding didn't fall for any of that. He played bishop to b7. Now white is certainly now struggling a bit to hang on to the pawns, but we had bishop c4. So at the moment, if you capture it, then queen takes is very strong for white. He's managed to hold on to the pawn. He's got it defended twice there. So instead of that, we had queen to e7, hitting the knight, and also attacking the bishop, and also defending the bishop. So, but Anish had something prepared. He had bishop b3, queen e5, and now rook e4. So it looks as if black's just won a piece, but it's, it has to be careful because there's an attack on the rook. There's an attack on the rook from the queen, and also the rook is about to come down here. In addition to that, there's possibilities of white checking on the long diagonal here when the king comes to h7. For example, if you play, well, in the game Ding played the best move a5, but if instead of that we play queen f6, I'll just give one long but typical line to illustrate what happens after rook e8, king h7, queen e4, g6, and now hg6 check. Now fg6, which you'd like to play to keep your king sheltered, that runs into rook check, and then rook takes bishop, so it's not possible really to do that. And if instead you play queen takes, we can play queen e5. And now there's a threat of checkmate with queen h8. So say black played rook f6, which is a natural way to try and stop it. Then we can play queen b8, sort of nice move which attacks the bishop and also threatens checkmate here, followed by king g7 and rook and queen f8 mate. So if black played queen b1, king h2, you'd half imagine black should be able to do something here, but it's not the case because after rook here, we could just take the bishop actually, but it's more fun to play rook h8, king g7, queen e5, and now after rook f6, we can now play queen to e8 and rook g6. Now we've manoeuvred the queen to a better square, and this time we can play the king rook here, forcing the king out because this runs into checkmate straight away with queen g7. So black would have to play king f6 and then queen d8 check forces the king further out into the open. For example, king f5, queen d7. The king tries to keep back, but then queen d6 check, king f5, and now, rather surprisingly, we can play rook g6, swapping off an attacking unit, but it somehow gets rid of the black's defense of his king. After fg6, queen e6 check, king f4, we can now play the move g3 check, and black's running out of squares. He can't play king here because of then something like f4, king here, and then queen h3 would be one way of doing it. And if king f3, we can drop the queen back to e3, forcing king g4, queen f4 check, king h5, and now queen h4's mate. And all the lines seem to lead to something like that. Ding played the much more powerful move, a5. And again, Anish found the best response himself with queen e1. Because now we'll see in a minute what his idea is. It's just somehow looks like it's just a piece down. After queen h5, rook e8 check, king h7, and now bishop c2. Well, this was actually a mistake, as it turns out. The better move was just to play queen e7, and then the threat to the bishop and also to the rook gives white enough play, because rook b6 we can always answer with d6, and white should be doing okay there. So instead of that, we had bishop c2 from Anish, f5, and then queen e5. So he's hitting the loose rook. The rook captured on d5 with a gain of tempo, hitting the queen. And now queen e6, and now the knight came back to c5, which is a welcome move for black to play as long as he's not checkmated, because now the knight covers sort of key square on e6, and it's nearer to defending its own king. So we had queen g8 check, king g6. Looks as if black's out of the woods here, but very short of time. Both of them are virtually on no time now. Anish played his last chance, and now he's intending a rook check here. But Ding played rook d1. It turns out, it's not easy to see in time trouble, but it turns out that king f6 is a stronger move, simply intending queen f7. In particular, we can meet rook here with queen f7, and the black king is on this unusual square. It's completely okay there. But Ding played rook d1, and we had bishop takes d1, queen takes d1, king h2, and now he played f4, because now he's eliminated the bishop, which was on when the bishop was here. This move wasn't possible because it would have been illegal. That's why you can't make a move when it's illegal. So then we had rook e7, again attacking the g7 pawn, and now Ding, rather than risk anything, because there's also a queen f7 possibility, he took the perpetual with queen h5, king g1, queen d1, king h2, queen h5, and then one more check each. One more check from black rather, and after king h2, a draw was the result due to repetitions, perpetual check. So really interesting game, and it meant that the match went to Armageddon. And in the Armageddon, which I'm not going to cover, it wasn't sort of a brilliant game, I didn't think, but Anish, I think Ding won the toss. He chose black, which most of the players seem to do. He has 4 minutes against 5. And simply Anish didn't really get anywhere against Ding's Berlin. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the game, please subscribe to the channel. That would be wonderful, or like the video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye now.